Alright, so I think I'm recording. The next three problems use this table. And maybe some of the confusion is people just don't understand the information this table is providing. It's just your old-fashioned XY table that you learned in Algebra 1. It's just that rather than written vertical, it's written horizontally. So all they've done is just taken this, and instead of presenting it to you like this, where it's X and Y, they have presented it to you horizontally. So what does this pair of numbers mean to us? Well, it's X and Y. It's that if you evaluate this function at -4, that the output is -8, because here the input is the X coordinate and the output of the function is the Y coordinate. Y is always equal to f of x. So this bottom row of numbers, all of these values are Y coordinates. The top is obviously X coordinates. So what this table is telling us in this first column here, that f evaluated at -4 is equal to -8. The next column there, this guy is telling us that f evaluated at -3 is equal to -5. The next column is telling us that f evaluated at -2 is equal to -1, and so on. That's what the information this table is providing. So let's look and see if we can apply that and use that in doing these problems. So it's asking us about a different function g, and it's not providing us a table for g. We have a table for f, but we don't have a table for g. But it tells us there's a relationship between g and f, and the relationship is given through this equation. So here, this x can be any number, but whatever number it is here, it's that same number, x, is over here. So if they're wanting me to evaluate g when x is 1, then on the right hand side, everywhere -1, I didn't read that right. Everywhere I see an x, I replace it with -1. Well, this is saying take 2 times x. 2 times -1 minus 3. Well, I can do that arithmetic inside the parentheses. I know what positive 2 times -1 is. That's a -2. So now I'm ready to go to the table, because if I know what two numbers to subtract here, I'll be able to have my answer. So remember, we know how to read this table. In fact, there it is right there, that f evaluated at -2 is equal to -1. So this right here is a number, and that table provides me with a number. F evaluated at -2 is equal to -1. So instead of writing the symbols, I now know what that number is, and then I subtract 3, so I know my final answer here is -4, that g evaluated at -1 is equal to -4. Well, let's do the next one. Same idea. You know, we don't have a table for g, but we have a relationship between this function g and this function f that we do have a table for. It wants me to evaluate this g this time at 0. Everywhere I see an x, I don't write x, I replace it with 0. So inside the parentheses here, see, this is not a transformation, this is just substitution. I'm not shifting things to the left or the right, because I don't have an initial point to even shift to the left or to the right. I mean, I suppose I could try to do things with the entire table, but this is just substitution. This is so much easier. So 0 minus 3 is a -3. So I need to use the table. It wants me to take the opposite of whatever this number is. So the table will tell me that number, and I take the opposite of it. Don't lose that negative sign. So f evaluated at -3 is -5, but the opposite of -5 is +5. So g evaluated at 0 is equal to 5. All right, so now let's do this bottom one here. We're trying to ask to evaluate g at -1. We know the relationship between g and f is given through this equation. It's -2 times a number I'm going to get from my table. Well, I have to figure out what number that is from the table. Inside the parentheses, I've got 3 times -1 plus 4. So I have to figure out what that is because I look across here and I don't see any column that says 3 times -1 plus 4. But, oh, don't forget that -1 right there. But I can figure it out because I don't need a table to figure out positive 3 times a -1 is -3. And -3 plus 4 is 1. And then I have that -1. So now I need to go to the table because this is a subtraction problem. And the first number in here is -2 times a number that's in my table. So I need to figure out what f evaluated at +1 is from the table. Well, here's 1. F evaluated at 1 is 2. So I've got a -2 times a +2. And then don't forget that -1 was on there. -1. Well, that's -4 minus 1. Hey, that's -5. So this g evaluated at -1, my final answer is -5. So it wasn't shifts left and right. It was just flat out simple substitution, reading points from a table and doing simple arithmetic. Don't make it harder than what it needs to be. Don't skip it. Try to figure out how to use that table, But inside the parentheses, you want to just do the normal arithmetic like you did from the 2nd grade on. All right, talk to you later. Bye.